Welcome back to Development Book Club. Today we continue with Loving Kindness. And we'll cover two quick chapters, which are the hindrances to Metta, as well as working with anger and aversion. So there are two main hindrances to Metta, desire and attachment. We'll begin with desire. Number one, so desire, grasping, clinging, greed, attachment. It's a state of mind that defines what we think we need in order to be happy. Desire generates divisiveness and clouds the mind with clinging and attachment. In order to fulfill our desires, we can give up very much, including our contentment, and feel jealousy and envy, which are very isolating feelings. All that seems to exist is just me and the object of desire. And so this feeling keeps coming up again and again in the book of when we have these certain states of being, they narrow our focus. And when we're feeling more metta or loving kindness, that everything is open and unified versus closed down and separate. So when the source of satisfaction or happiness is seen as limited, then we fixate upon these things, right? And this cuts our feeling and connection and compassion with others. All of this, again, contracts our lives and narrows focus. The more we think of having, let's say, objects or even people, especially with people actually, the more we separate us from the other person or the object, which itself is setting up a separation, right, and division and a gulf. That is the issue with desire. So, and then with attachment, which is based on desire, it's the root of suffering because of its two accompanying qualities, seeking and guarding. So seeking is endless, the constant pursuit, right? And guarding involves trying to hold on to things in a world where everything is changing. And the result of both of these sort of aspects of attachment are fear and anxiety. In Tibetan Buddhism, this idea of renunciation is defined as, instead of just like, we think of like a renunciant as this hermit in a cave, an ascetic really, but renunciation in this other tradition is accepting what comes into our lives and letting go of what leaves our lives. So there's not really resistance there. And the opposite of attachment is not a sullen withdrawal from things or an attitude of indifference. It's a very full, very alive, very open disposition in the world. Chapter 5 is about working with anger and aversion. There's a lot of really cool points in this chapter. So aversion and anger are the so-called far enemies of metta. And this is the idea that through actions born of this mind state of aversion, we harm others, we harm ourselves. Aversion can flow outwards in anger and rage, or it can flow inwards into ourselves in guilt, fear, despair, grief, disappointment. So additionally here with aversion, whenever we forget the larger perspective, metta, connection, we become lost in the moment's little drama. Lost in aversion, we forget our own even capacity to love. We're so narrowly focused on one thing. And a quick word on anger. This is really interesting, is that most contemporary research about psychological research on anger shows that when one expresses anger quite often in one's life, it leads to the easy expression of anger. So expressing anger becomes a habit, right? It has sort of momentum to it. Anger may seem like a solid thing, but it is actually not. I wrote this part in bold. In reality, anger is merely a conditioned response that arises and passes away. Unbold. When we identify with these passing states as being who we really are, truly are, we let them rule us and we're compelled to act in ways that cause harm to both ourselves and to others. So, given all this, recognizing aversion and anger in the mind as transitory is very different from identifying with them as being who we really are and acting on them. I want to say that again. Recognizing aversion and anger in the mind, that these things are transitory, is very different from identifying with them as being who we really actually are, and then acting accordingly. Both ways, right? And then one positive note that she included about anger, which is quite unexpected. She says that one positive note about anger is that it has the ability to cut through surface appearances. It is very critical and demanding, obviously. So anger has a power to pierce through the obvious and into things that are more hidden. And in this way, anger may be transmuted to wisdom. So anger and wisdom sort of share this connection of cutting through, let's say, the bullshit, for lack of a better term. And please join us again when we continue with loving kindness next time.